Welcome, everyone. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. Welcome to Facebook Live. It is the 28th of January, year 2026. I hope everyone is staying warm and safe. We've had some winter weather across the nation here in the United States. Quite a few of us have been affected with cold temperatures. So hoping everyone is staying warm and safe. I know Wyatt had joined. Is that correct? I don't see Wyatt. So let me get started with who we have on the panel today. We have Lakshmi here.
Hi, Poonam.
Good evening, Wyatt. Thank you so much for joining.
Yeah, I sure do. I read you 5x5. The signal goes in and out, so I'm going to move the car to get a little better signal.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you.
Let me introduce the panel today. We have Lakshmi today. Good evening, Lakshmi. Lakshmi is a session leader who leads sessions on mantra chanting whenever we host workshops here. And then she's part of our core group of meditators as well, and has been on the panel advising us with her insights and wisdom for a while. She also hosts a monthly talk or Q&A on Sunday. If anybody's interested in that, please contact Lakshmi. Good evening, Lakshmi.
I'm doing this time on a Saturday. It's on January 31st. If anyone wants to join, they can contact me and I'll send them the link.
Perfect. Sounds good.
Yeah.
You can also post it in the group page, Lakshmi.
Okay. I can do that, actually. I'll do that.
Sure.
I'll do that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have Patricia here. Good evening, Patricia. Patricia is part of a core group of meditators. And then we have Wyatt as well. So today, Lakshmi and Patricia, Wyatt actually asked me to discuss this huge passage, which is, I'm going to try and see if I can copy and paste it. I put it as a comment in the featured section of our, you know, where the Facebook Live the post for the Facebook Live is. Right on that post, there's a comment. I don't even know if I can copy such a long, it's a very long. Let me try and paste it. Let's see. Yeah.
Okay, you could post it?
Not the whole thing. I'm doing it
but...
in chunks.
Okay.
So I posted a portion of it.
Oh, wow. It is big. It is very big.
So Wyatt wanted to discuss this portion.
Okay. Do you want me to start reading this?
Yes, please. You can start.
At some point, the Bible ceased to function as a compass and began to function as a menu. People selected what felt affirming, bypassed what demanded restraint, and softened the rest with language that sounded compassionate while carrying little weight. Faith thinned into preference. That shift carried consequences far beyond any single moral disagreement. Reverence faded as seriousness became inconvenient. Fear of God lost its place in a culture devoted to lightness. Discipline felt intrusive in an age organized around expression. Depth lost value. Once pleasure took over as the guiding aim. The rules addressed human fragility. They existed because impulse left alone corrodes judgment and character. Boundaries served as guardrails. Once removed, decline arrived quietly. Freedom felt exhilarating. Modernity felt playful. The cost revealed itself later. A few minutes of modern media makes the pattern obvious. Sacred things dissolve into content. Solemnity evaporates. Irony settles over every subject. Sex becomes entertainment. Violence becomes spectacle. Authority turns comic. Even suffering arrives packaged for easy consumption. The joke always arrives first. This condition emerged by design. A culture that abandons reverence fills the vacuum with distraction. Seriousness gives shape to life. Fear of consequence slows desire. Limits refine pleasure into meaning. Without them, appetite consumes everything it touches. Life was meant to shape the soul. Pleasure alone builds nothing. It adds no depth. It prepares nothing eternal. It traps people inside, repeating desires, dressed up with better lighting and fewer inhibitions. Earlier religious cultures understood this through experience. Life pressed inward, suffering instructed, restraint clarified, action shaped the soul into something capable of standing before the eternal. Meaning came through discipline and humility, and limits accepted without resentment. The worldview carried seriousness because it assumed destination. Modern culture assumes none. Life becomes something to consume rather than something to be shaped. Warnings get laughed past, demands get edited out. The language of faith remains while obligation disappears. People emerge unprepared for sacrifice or endurance. Fear of God vanished as accountability lost appeal. Reverence requires submission to order. Order requires restraint. Indulgence resists both. Everything lightens, everything softens, everything jokes, nothing stays serious long enough to take root. The tragedy lies in casual treatment of the Bible. Ancient wisdom cannot survive selective obedience. Rules meant to shape the soul collapse under negotiation. Life exists to shape the soul over time. It presses on character and demands growth. When seriousness fades, the work stops. Pleasure replaces discipline, meaning thins. What remains feels lighter and emptier. The cost settles with human being who never becomes what life required. Yeah, that is super long, but what is the question, Poonam?
He wanted us to discuss this. Why?
Okay.
Sure, I'll be happy to. Let me get the picture back. Here we go. Okay, so what the I didn't okay. The answer came to me a few hours ago because when people use that thing, people okay. This article by this man, this post, used a phrase that I heard a lot as a boy in church school and then later in life, which I always disagreed with, where this man said, what's wrong with the spiritual foundation of America is that people have lost the fear of God. And it came to me today, wait a second. That to me, okay, that's given his lack of consciousness, that's where he's at. Where my level of consciousness is from the work of both Eckhart Tolle and Dr. Joe Dispenza is that if I'm not one with what, and I don't use the term God, and the only reason why is because I don't want to be about some up in my head here conceptualized experience, because that's not an experience. That's me as a human wanting to create relationships. And then you'll all remember that in the work of Eckhart Tolle, he speaks of, if you say it's me and God, you've created separation. And that's coming out of this thing up here between my ears. So when Mars, that's the name he goes by in his post, spoke of the fear of God, I thought, whoa. Now, in the past, going back like over 40 years ago, there was a gal that I dated who said to me, well, you have issues with Jesus Christ being your Lord and Savior because you have issues of rebellion with your dad being a bully and an authoritarian. And so I listened. But today, what I saw was that this is all dogma. And that's a term, remember, Poonam, that you mentioned to me in another post we had a lot of exchanges about a month ago. And that which is an almighty power that I am part of, whether I call it presence or quantum field or Atman or Buddha or Christ consciousness, it's not about the label. The oneness is a love that knows no boundaries. There's no hate involved because there's no opposites. It's a world of non-duality. And so the way I see it, that what I sent to you yesterday, Poonam, originally just to get the dialogue, and thank you for including it on the call, is that this is the very reason, I'm laughing when you hear this, this is the very reason why I ruled out relocating. I mean, I'm going to leave California, but I am not going to fit in to the level of consciousness of the Bible Belt in America. Because the expansion of my consciousness is not about opposites. It's not about the fear. I mean, that fear of God that he spoke of reminded me as a boy that was a way to control and keep people in line. That was a projection of man's relationship with himself based upon duality of love, hate, joy, despair, and so on. So, I got my answer today. And Poonam, what's your take on what I sent to you? And by the way, when I ask of that, it's just because I want to hear from everyone who wants to participate, of course. But I know that my experience, my consciousness, one person's a majority. I don't need other people to agree with me any longer. So, but I'm interested in being available for anybody and everyone. So let's start with you, Poonam. What was your take on what I sent to you yesterday?
I'd like to have Lakshmi start because she may leave early. So let her speak and then
Okay.
I will comment after Lakshmi speaks.
Okay. Very well. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I must apologize. I haven't read Bible. My dad used to encourage me a lot because he used to read Bible very religiously, and he would encourage me. But I apologize. So, but the term God fearing is used a lot in Christianity, and even in other religions they use. Even in Hindu, many people do rituals because they are afraid that if they don't do that particular ritual, something bad will happen to them. And of course, life always has challenges. And when something challenging happens, they attribute that, oh, I didn't do that particular ritual, so now that's why God is mad at me. So that God fearing is something that is there, I think, in every culture. And God is someone we should never be afraid of. Of course, I'm not saying the God who has a name and a shape. Here, it's the formless consciousness I am referring to the one all-encompassing energy that I'm referring to. And that energy is just very, very loving, doesn't judge anyone. And, I always remember this story of this really young guy who was only 17 when he committed murder, and he ended up in prison. And this meditation teacher goes to the prison, and the social worker comes up to him, says that I have this 35-year-old man in the prison. We have he is on multiple blood pressure medications, and in spite of taking all the medications, his blood pressure levels are still up. And you say that meditation helps, so we are going to send him to you, and we'll see if this helps. And that man would come and sit it was just once a week. It was not even every day meditation. But the teacher taught him to view every thought as a cloud in the sky, just as the sky is not attached to the cloud. Visualize that every thought that he is getting is not getting attached to the divinity within him. That is the deeper I that Eckhart says. The surface I is the thought that keeps on coming and going. So,
Yeah.
and he taught him some mantra, and he asked him to keep chanting that mantra and be aware of whatever thought that comes and goes. And he comes every week, and within 6 months, he doesn't talk at all. He comes and goes, and within 6 months, the social worker comes and tells, you want to know something interesting? This guy is not only his blood pressure is down, now he's off all the medications. Now he's not taking any single medication. He's off the medication. So, and one day this guy comes up to him and says, they are moving the prison, so I might not see you again, but I have to tell you something. You are the first person who said that divinity exists in me and in everyone. Ever since I was born, I have been treated so badly that every bad word in dictionary I have been called. Nobody ever was kind to me, and I've been treated very badly by my family and society, everyone. And so, of course, I committed this crime at 17, for which I do deserve to stay in the prison. But now I consider this cell as the monk's cell, because the minute I come out, the warden says you are a worthless piece of shit or whatever, but I don't need to absorb that. It's just a thought. And that thought is not going to get attached to the divinity within me. And he said, the cell might be a prison for the others, but to me, it is like a monk's cell that I'm going to get to meditate. And I was just blown away by this real life story. And of course, he had to experience his suffering, and only then, I'm sure, his energy was helping a lot of people in that prison also. So what I am trying to tell is, yes, religion teaches us many things, and over the thousands of years, all religions are misinterpreted, not only Christianity. We have our own Upanishads and Vedanta, which preaches about that Aham Brahmasmi, which is the I am God. But not many people in India follow that. They are still very rooted in the form and to the many, many gods. So it's just you go from one god to another god, and not realize that the essence is within you. So
Yeah.
I feel that religion, at the end of the day, I think was there for a purpose, because the temples and churches and mosques were there because we needed the society, and the social gathering was very important for the people. So it served a purpose, but because of the misinterpretation of religion over the years, I think it's totally been misunderstood by all of us. So yes, Poonam, you can start talking. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Lakshmi. Grateful for the insights. I love the example of the person in the present, that divinity exists no matter where you are, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
So when I read this passage, or I read it to the extent where this person talks about fear of God, I don't know if they mean when they say fear of God lost its place in a culture devoted to lightness. If they mean that they may have used the term fear of God, Wyatt, but they may mean that people have stopped contemplating being the divine.
No.
They have lost. What I'm saying is, in essence, like, don't look at the surface of the words.
Okay.
Look at the essence of the word. What they mean, they may use the word fear of God because that may be the terminology that is used in Christianity, that you need to fear God. But what they may be meaning, the meaning behind that is, people have lost the art of contemplation of God, or art of contemplation of the divine, or art of contemplation. Like when you say, I understand that there is non-duality, that there is oneness, right?
Yeah.
When you
Right.
say that, what is that non-duality? That non-duality is who I am and what everything that exists or does not exist is.
Yeah.
That one consciousness.
Yes.
Right.
And that's
Right.
not to be feared.
Right. So don't take the word fear at the surface of it. Understand that that person wants everyone to experience that oneness, because once we contemplate on God, or once we contemplate about the divine, that is in India, you know, what they say is there are different methods of reaching the one. One method is the bhakti movement, which is the art of devotion, right? In the art of devotion, you devote yourself to a god or goddess. Like there is a certain god that you, like the greatest example in India is given of this person called Mirabai, who was a devotee of Lord Krishna, right? Krishna is one of the like an avatar of Lord Vishnu. So she is like the epitome of what this bhakti, knowing of this oneness through the bhakti movement, right? Or the art of devotion. So I think what they mean is people have lost that devotion.
So
what they're trying
okay.
to say in that passage, and not communicating that very well, is that humans need to get into this art of, one way is to be devoted, one way is to be contemplative. Like in India, they say there's this Raj Yoga. You can get to the divine through Raj Yoga. You can get to the divine through Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga is the art of devotion, right? You can get to the divine through Jnana Yoga, which is through knowledge, right? So they're like different ways to. There's not like one path. There are different ways. There are different ways to get to the divine. And what this person may be saying is, my understanding is, they may be saying fear of God, but they may be meaning that we have lost the art of contemplation of the divine. Take away the word God, just say, instead of fear of God, use the words art of contemplation of the divine. We've lost that art.
That's right out of that. When the sage spoke to the character in the original movie and spoke of the three paths to God, he said, my son, while you're here, you'll discover that the three paths are but one path. So the value I'm getting from listening to you reflect this for me, I see that, and yet what I saw in what the man wrote, which tells me, well, I just say it, that the oneness is not to be feared. I see him saying that without the fear of God, we'll be punished if
Don't
we
use the
don't
word.
condone, if we don't get our lives back on the rails by fearing God, because people too often condone changing their behavior out of the fear of consequences. That's what I'm hearing him say.
So look at the beginning where he says at some point the Bible ceased to function as a compass and began to function as a menu. So he's saying people are taking itsy bitsy pieces from the Bible and just applying those itsy bitsy pieces, right? People selected what felt affirming, bypassed what demanded restraint, and softened the rest with language that sounded compassionate while carrying little weight. Faith thinned into preference. So instead of having this trust in the divine,
Right.
in God, faith thinned. He's right. Faith is thinning, right? How many human beings out of the 8 billion human beings that are on this planet, how many of them actually have this implicit faith and trust in God? They don't.
They don't.
Right. So faith thinned into preference because people have been doing this itsy bitsy. You cannot take little pieces of the religion and say, oh, I'm just going to take piecemeal this, piecemeal that, and this is I am a Christian, right? But I don't think they mean fear of God. I think they mean that contemplation of God is lost its place, meaning people have lost the art of contemplation of God, which is true. Stillness is the language that God speaks. Everything else is a bad translation, as Eckhart says, right? I think Eckhart is quoting Rumi. Rumi said, stillness is the language God speaks. Everything else is a bad translation. So we've lost that art of being still. Right?
Right.
And that stillness is what actually gets us into that oneness, the unity consciousness.
Yes, because the egoic, I made that comment, if you saw it a few hours ago, on a great post you put up today, that that the egoic, that the conditioned mind is always the egoic mind, because it's in a world of duality, it's about identity. And so what I'm now seeing more clearly through your eyes is that what the writer of the post was conveying is that until people transcend the egoic mind, then they're going to produce their own, for lack of a better way of saying it, their own hell on earth.
No, what he's saying is to to bring that discipline of contemplation on God.
Okay.
Bring back the discipline of, he says reverence faded, right? And that's the reverence comes once you are in that stillness, once you have the discipline to make yourself sit and contemplate on God, then the reverence and sacredness of that experience in itself is reverent. It's very sacred. So you bring sacredness into the energy field where you are. Right? So he's saying reverence faded as seriousness become, and he's saying be serious. He may have used terms that really don't need to be there, but it requires a certain amount of discipline to sit and make ourselves sit in stillness and to put ourselves through the art of contemplation, whether we want to do the devotional, which is art of contemplation of God, or just the art of contemplation. That's what he means. But let me go to Patricia and see what Patricia wants to say.
Please, thank you for
Francesca as well. Go ahead, Patricia.
Thank you. Very, very interesting. When Lakshmi was reading the passage, what came up to me is one quote that we see things not as they are, but we see them as we are. Yeah. So it almost, that person who posted it, it tells us about that person, not necessarily about society. And maybe as you say that we lost as human beings that discipline of contemplation, but yet many of us do that. So I don't really like those general statements, because almost each word that he put, it's when I was listening to it, I said, that's not true. That's not really the case. I mean, when did it happen? Within the last decade, or did it happen within the last 100 years? Because yeah, maybe there was not so much literacy, and I mean, the people still wrote letters and books, and so we have some knowledge from the past, but then there was a lot of practices that survived and became traditions and cultured. And in every single religion, God is loving. So I grew up in Roman Catholic. Okay, I am Roman Catholic from upbringing. So that on one side, I learned as a child, that you have to be afraid of God, because if you do something wrong, you're gonna get punished. Yeah. But that's a human interpretation of people that use religion to control others, because raising children in love, it's difficult because it makes you look at yourself first, versus it's easier to just say, oh, don't do this, or if you do this, you're gonna get punished. And it's not me punishing, it's God. So you can't question God. It's such bullshit. I'm sorry to say that, but as a young kid, I grew up in it, and I actually asked, and that was a very present moment of me. I have the memory of it still. I don't know how old I was, maybe 7 or 8 years old, during a religion class. And we were talking about, going to church, getting baptized, all the ceremonies you have to do through the, whatchamacallit, I don't know the English name, right? The 7 sacraments, like sacrament of baptism, then confirmation, then marriage, then whatever. There's a few of them in life. And I asked one question. It was a silly question. I said, what if you are a good person? You're actually living the goodness in you, which is God in you, but you are on an island. They don't have churches. They don't have organized religion. So what? Because you're not baptized, you're gonna go to hell because you have the original sin? And the priest said yes. And in that single moment, my whole trust into the organized religion that I was learning about, from then on, yeah, I learned it to pass the grade and classes because we had to, but I was done because I knew it was not true. It was human ego using now the God to control societies. It's just, it wasn't true. So that's how I see it. So honestly, it's individually. I wouldn't say like the person here, it's generalized. There's no like, what, okay, give me numbers. If it's what, out of 100% of what human Americans that are divided in religion, they're saying that everybody lost their faith. That's not true, because on everyday basis, when I have contact with humans, there is God in their life, and it's not that they have to talk about it, but they're just being good people, helpful. First of all, just helpful to each other, laughing and doing the right thing. So I don't really think that we have to be afraid. It's okay to be joyful. Joy is like one of the highest emotions that we have. So I mean, Eckhart even talks about, pleasure versus like happiness versus joy. But that's, human part of us and being godlike part of us. It's within each one of us. We're trying to go back to oneness, to our true nature, which is divine. So honestly, generalizing like this, I'm just not, it's just I don't even think it's an opinion. It just didn't resonate with me. That way of looking of what's going on just did not resonate with me. So I don't know if I have, rights to say anything about this. So that's my 5 or 2 cents. So thank you.
The one thing I wanted to bring up, Patricia, thank you so much for your insights. There is one person on social media. He rarely appears on social media, but when he does, he's somebody that actually does out-of-body experiences. Like, he's very good at out-of-body experiences, OBE. His name is Darius J. Wright, and he was saying in one of the, I think I may even have posted it back to our medical medium channel. He was saying that baptism actually means that there is something, like when John baptized Jesus, there is some way where you can organize the energy where when this person is baptized, their vibrational energy rises. Like, there's a certain numeric frequency that you can perform the baptism with, right? Does that make sense?
Oh, no, I
it may be that when John baptized Jesus, there was a science to it where the person who's being baptized, actually it all is about evolution, like raising your vibrational frequency, right? That person who was baptized, actually their frequency was at their highest vibration after the baptism.
Right now I understand
Now,
it, but then it was just the way
so
we explain it. It was just, no, if you don't follow it like this, you go to hell. I'm like, okay, so that's the fear, instilling a fear.
right, but just imagine like humans are no longer that higher vibrational beings like John the Baptist, and humans are just trying to go through the motions of, like, in
But
India.
Poonam, you're saying, I'm sorry, but you're saying people are no longer. Never ever, even when I listened to Eckhart and said it was always throughout the years, it was one enlightened person and millions of not. That ratio did not really change much. So it's not like it was recently that people lost it. It always was a struggle. Yeah, we have few enlightened ones that show us the way, which Christ was one of them, but the rest, I mean, people were killing each other, cutting each other's hands for, like, it was so much worse than is right now. So I don't agree that it's worse than it was. You know what I mean?
Realize when they had cultures like Atlantis or Lemuria, people in the culture of Atlantis, everybody was at their highest vibration.
I don't
That's
think
why
this person is talking about those cultures.
But what I'm saying is when you're saying that no, people were not at the highest vibration, people were at some point in time, whatever that civilization existed was at that highest vibration. Realize that we have lost that technique, or we've lost that way of being. I mean, now maybe Dr. Joe to a certain extent is teaching some of that, right? If you listen to a lot of other teachers, they would say that even Jesus had gone through like he, the periods of time from 12 years to 30 or 31 when he came back. He went to Egypt, he went to India, he went to Tibet.
Yeah.
He's traveled the East. A lot of people in India say there is this ascended master called Maha Avatar Babaji. They say that Babaji actually gave Jesus his initiation, right? So Jesus has learned a lot from the Eastern schools and mystery schools in Egypt, right? Even for Jesus to be an ascended master the way he is, he had forgotten. And everybody, just like Carolyn Myss says, right? We all go through that river of forgetfulness, right? Our soul goes through the river of forgetfulness. We forget that we were one, and we're born here.
With people like you, Lakshmi, Francesca, Wyatt, and all the spiritual teachers, I just don't see that you can tell that we lost it. Like, we still are contemplating this, and we take accountability for our,
I mean, when you say we lost it, he means in general.
So that what I'm having a
5%,
problem with is whoever wrote it, generalization of those statements. I don't think they're presenting the truth of what is happening to humans.
So if there are 8 billion people, just because out of the 8 billion people, 1 million people are awakened, does not mean that all of humanity is awakened, right?
Right, but it doesn't mean that ratio really changed. So again, this is a judgment based on, he keeps saying that Bible was a book written at a certain point, and he said that people use Bible differently than they use it now. I don't think so. I really don't. Bible was also used before to just, keep people scared of the religious, which is organized way to keep, people in control. Now people are more free, so freedom is worse? I don't think so. Now each one of us is responsible for our own spiritual path. Before it was put on us, we didn't have a choice.
I have a feeling he means like maybe hundreds of years ago, people were more reverent, people had more sacredness. The culture is losing that sacredness.
This guy lives now. There's no knowledge how people were hundreds and thousands of years. Where is he taking that information from? Was he living there? Did he actually travel time and witnessed how it was? So I just disagree with everything, that's being said.
Okay,
Thank you.
sounds good. I was just trying to point another perspective. Here we go. Let me talk to Francesca because it's getting close to the top of the hour. Go ahead, Francesca. Did you get what passage Wyatt had wanted us to discuss? Thank you.
Yeah, hi everybody.
evening.
I got the like I kind of joined late, so I caught some of what Lakshmi was reading, and then during your guys' discussion, I was trying to just quickly skim through pieces of it to try and gather what the writer was saying. And for me, the way I normally do that is I usually tap into the person's state of consciousness to understand the depth, of where they're coming from and the message that they're trying to. So it's kind of hard to do that because, I was also at the same time hearing pieces of the discussion, which I'm like, okay, yes, and then reading pieces of the writing, and it's like, yeah, that's right. Okay, I see what he's saying, or she. I'm not sure. I'm guessing it sounded like it's a guy that wrote it. So I'm like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. And the thing is, doing that, I found that I actually ended up lighting some incense because it was pulling me into the mind. And I've been practicing stillness and presence like all day, well, for days, and I lost it for a few days, and I finally found it again today. And then I'm like, oh, okay, I could feel there is an energetic presence to it that I'm not necessarily resonating with, not because something is wrong with the content, but there's something that's being stirred underneath that writing. And from my personal observation, and this is why I kind of reduce, even when it comes to showing up, how I show up and what content I respond to, even on social media. I'm picky, even pickier than I was picky before, because of the energetic frequency and from the bigger picture in relation to what's happening versus humanity's states of consciousness in relation to where they're at, and their understanding of what's happening can be very different, because if somebody's writing, they're writing based on where they're at and based on their experiences, based on their own self-observation, not necessarily their own self-realization, because there is a mind stream of consciousness that can actually, that's extremely brilliantly knowledgeable, that can do that, that can write at that level, those levels, right? Does not necessarily mean they're an embodiment of these teachings or even a practice or any of that, right? As a result of that, I find that's the type of magnetic or actually electrical, like I understand how things penetrate my consciousness, so in relation to electrical, but that's a type of content, for example, will pull you into the mind stream rather than you read it and you become grounded in stillness. Because when you read something like that, it's stirring all sorts. The mind is stirring here like crazy, right? And before you know it, you're discussing and pulled into that external state of consciousness, which is really can be chaotic and noisy if you're not at a state where you can read it without the penetration and understand, you know, where the writer is coming from. And just from little pieces from what I've picked out in relation to the Bible, because I've read lots of the Bible, lots of parts of the Bible myself. I've baptized over 5 times. You know, I've done the journey externally since I was a child. Literally, I wanted to be Jesus so I can, you know, save kids with my bare hands, because that's literally what the Bible taught us Jesus would do. So if I didn't break the 10 commandments and, you know, all the rules, I was supposed to become Jesus. Of course, you know, it never happened. Fast forward to now is, you know, there's definitely, and this has happened not just in Christianity, in all religions, all of the teachings were unfortunately misinterpreted by the egoic state of mind of those who were using these teachings for a different reason. You know, whether it's to recruit people into, you know, building, you know, it was all about power and control, right?
Yeah.
And then we build these temples, and then the temples need monies, and, you know, so it became something completely different. And in the entire process of doing that, unfortunately, the real teachings were lost. And these are teachings who, you know, people like the Christ and the Buddha and many, many divine beings like Mirabai, Hakuin, Gandhi, Martin Luther King, so many beautiful beings whom have actually done, Eckhart, right? Deepak, so many beautiful beings, even to this day, who still, all of us, right, do the work. You know, we come into wisdom, and only now, because of social media, I can see for the first time the teachings are being distributed from us, like at a larger scale, like all across the board, versus, you know, in the past they were, you know, there's pardon me, I'm trying not to use bad words, but there were stupid rules and you know, egoic tendencies that deliver teachings in manipulative ways, you know. And so that manipulation, and really consciousness manipulation, resulted in incorrect teachings, you know, like people going from, you know, thinking, you know, or back in the ancient days, for example, people were aware that Buddhism, for example, I'll use Buddhism because it's relatable. Well, they're all relatable, but I'll use Buddhism, then we'll go to Hinduism. Okay, here it comes. Okay, right. So in Buddhism, after a while, it became, because of temples and so forth, like they were monasteries, right? Which is beautiful, you know, for, you know, going away, you know, Vipassana, doing the practices, all of that stuff. That's one way of doing the journey. And then now we are having like even more and more temples and so forth. Before you know it, Buddhism, some people aren't even sure, is it a religion? You know, what is the religion? And referring to it as religion. Again, this dualistic mind view, right? That form labels and misinterpretation, like the telephone game, right? And Buddhism itself is actually a path. It's not even a religion, right? And, you know, in Hinduism, for example, you know, people, Lakshmi, I believe, touched on this, you know, people still do, actually. They're, and I think Christianity and Hinduism, they both lead in this regards. People were thought to embrace spirituality through the external lens. So all of the deities, for example, people are actually praying to those deities, and then they're doing the mantras and the prayers and the, you know, sutras and all these things. And then when something, you know, goes wrong in their life, it's like, oh my God, I shouldn't have done that, you know, because you know, this deity smite me, or this God did this to me. And I'm like, you know, and it's kind of hard to look at it and go, oh my goodness, that is not what's happening. For starters, the deities, every single one of them actually is a representation of an aspect of us. Ganesh, for example, you know, this the subconscious mind, right? And so forth. Kali, she's the master, she's the guard, actually, at the realm of when we're coming into power, you know, at the, you know, her head of necklace. Those are all different. That's our egoic state of mind. All the different masks that it wears, that's actually what it represents, right? So there's so much more. And I mean, that's like a long transmission. We don't have enough time to do it here today. But basically, there's so much to every single deity. It's not the way we were taught. Like, it's not something we worship. Yes, of course, you know, when I go and I see a Buddha, you know, I bow, I honor, but I'm honoring not because there's that statue of the Buddha there. I'm honoring the fact that, oh my goodness, like, you know, like I'm aware, you know, at this whole journey, my path, oh my God, I'm overflowing in gratitude because the Buddha has shared his wisdom with me every time I sit, you know, and I contemplate and all of these things, right? So, you know, if I go into a temple, I'm going and I'm honoring that space. Like, oh my God, this beautiful space. It's provided, you know, where, okay, it's not my house. And sometimes inner work, well, a lot of times inner work is really tough. You know, it becomes messy. And the last place I want to be is in my apartment. I just want to run from it, you know? So it's nice to have a different space to maybe do a practice. For example, when I was dissolving certain karmic imprints within my family lineage, I actually went, I couldn't do it in my apartment. I went to different spaces. It didn't, and these were portals, by the way, that I've used in the past to do certain work. And I couldn't go anywhere. And of all the places, I did not, and it was a dissolving relation with my sister. And of all the places, I actually ended up going to the church that I've judged in my mind. So it's to a Catholic church, but it's the church that my sister and I was sitting in before. And that was the only place I was able to sit. And with deep clarity, I was able to journal. I'm like, okay, this needed to happen here in this space, right? So these spaces, these art of these, you know, deities and everything really in the is physical reality that we've created is here in physical form. It's really representation. I call them like roadmaps, like little maps, you know, that's designed to point us in the wrong direction. I'm sorry, in the right direction. I rephrase that, to point us in the right direction. And unless we're doing that journey from within and we're moving through that process of contemplation and self-realization, we're not going to understand the full essence of what that artifact, that deity represents, what it's here, what he or she is here to teach us, right? Like the Christ, the story of the Christ. Eckhart Tolle speaks so much about the story of the Christ, and I resonate. Like, he shared different, you know, different parts of his teaching. He shared a lot about the Christ, and you know, what he shares is, you know, my experience as well. It's actually the true essence of the Christ and what that story itself was here to teach us. Not what the Bible told us, like, oh my God, you know, yes, they're teachings that actually it's not even necessarily the Bible itself, it's the people that are delivering the teachings from the Bible. And a lot of the people that deliver these teachings, and I'm labeling here only for the purpose of explaining with great clarity, are men, unfortunately, right? They were the ones that were privy into, you know, becoming priests and all of these things, because, you know, women were housewives. That's a whole mess, you know. And unfortunately, because they function mainly from the egoic state of mind, you know, unless you've cultivated that mind, which is the first step on the Eightfold Path, okay, it's developing the right mind. So unless you've developed that mind and you've cultivated that mind, you know, with great discipline and right effort, you're not going to be able to, well, the Eightfold Path, I'm still speaking of a right expression. So you're not going to be able to even embrace that right livelihood. You're not going to even know what it is. So teaching, for example, from the egoic state of mind, well, look at the world and the state of the world. We've seen the mess that it's made, right? We've served. So when you look at the teachings here, well, what this beautiful being is trying to share, and he's very deep, he is speaking truth, right, about a lot of, based on where he's at in relation to his state of consciousness, he's speaking a truth that's designed to awaken those whose awareness is, well, awareness doesn't go to sleep, to awaken those whose state of consciousness is still asleep, because part of the process of coming into wisdom, of enlightenment, is being able to recognize the truth. And sometimes that truth is harsh, you know, and a lot of what he's pointing is some of the harsh truths of what we've done with the teachings, you know, what we've done, you know, because of misinterpretation and you know, unfortunately, misinterpretation, misunderstanding, right? And again, great wisdom is often misunderstood because those who are actually, I'll give a great example here. Those who are interpreting it is doing so through the mind, the egoic state of mind. They're not necessarily practitioners, right? This actually, you know, kind of dips into my teachings a little bit, but when I was teaching anyways, I haven't been doing it anymore right now because I'm deepening in my own, you know, stillness practices, but essentially, the teachings were delivered through the constructs of the egoic state of mind from a knowledgeable space, like a scholar, you know, and these scholars who studied the teachings and interpreted all of this that they did was done through the mind, not necessarily through practice and embodiment and understanding. So from the deeper depths, like, you know, the Christ or the Buddha or Martin Luther King or Gandhi and all of the beautiful beings before us. So then Rumi, you know, not necessarily from those depths. Those depths requires contemplation. And one of the things that I witnessed that's happening right now in the world, like the Walk for Peace, those beautiful monks have left their monastery finally. And I'm like, thank you, God. Thank you, Buddha, Jesus Christ, everybody, like, oh my God. And they are demonstrating, they're doing something that hasn't been done in the history of humanity since, I'm not too sure in the order of who transitioned, whether it was Gandhi or Martin Luther King or whatever, or which one of the, you know, Bodhisattvas did this, but they're doing what the Bodhisattva does, okay? Which is transmitting through their presence alone, skillful means, right action. They're showing people that peace doesn't require going to another country and shooting the people in that other country because they, you know, you're upset or they made you angry or they're doing something that you don't like, which is what we were taught to do. And the governments are demonstrating that's what we're supposed to do. So there's that underlying conditioning, right? That's conditioned us to really to separate from our divinity, from our wholeness, from the true essence of who we truly are. And we've become the egoic state of mind, just like they are, right? Because now we're intoxicated, right? And following these streams of consciousness of hate and anger and violence. And then these monks came out and they're like, look, we're walking, you know, they're so present, they're so still, they're emanating that peace, that presence, that stillness so much. People are actually coming out, even the people who might have been violent and thinking angry thoughts and because they're angry at the government, it doesn't really matter. People are coming out because they have the ability to ignite that peace, that remembering within every single person that's walking with them. You know, whether even if they came out for just to see them, they came out, right? So that's skillful means, okay, that's right action, that's waking up. They're doing what no human that I'm aware of other than Eckhart Tolle has done before, right? And you know, it's really humbling to witness. Like, you know, today I actually shared a post and I'm like, thank you, America, for showing up, because the US is being judged like crazy because it's going crazy on that side, unfortunately. And you know what? I'm like, you know what? Thank you, USA. Thank you, America, for showing up, because every time somebody showed up to walk with those monks or even to see them, that person is remembering. That remembering is being ignited. That otherwise they wouldn't have showed up. They didn't have to show up, right? They could be doing something else. They could be in social media still, pardon me, whining about how bad the world is and all of these other things that's happening. But instead, they're showing up. They're showing up for peace, right? Peace doesn't come from the way we were taught And then this is why my whole teachings and everything that I've been shaping quietly, which is why I've disconnected from everything, and I'm, mostly in practice right now, is because we suffer the wrong way. We were taught to suffer the wrong way. We were taught that when we're angry, we're supposed to kill somebody else. We're supposed to get angry. We're supposed to gaslight. We're supposed to project. We're supposed to do all this messy thing based on our condition, our very own egoic state of mind. And pain body played roles in programming us this way as well too. But a lot of that programming also came from the external, right? And so, this beautiful journey of remembering that we've been doing here is from our inner work, journey from our heads to our hearts, is actually, equipping us to see, oh my God, when I'm angry, ooh, I can sit with this emotion. I can feel it. Oh my God, okay, if I can't sit still because I want to okay, I can dance, I can stomp, I can scream, I can walk fiercely in the forest. There's so many things. I can journal, there's so many things that we can do that doesn't involve violence. And by having even the realization itself, we're now suddenly aware, okay, now we're in this state of awareness. We're actually retraining our nervous system to respond. Because when we've sat with that emotion, when we've examined it, we've become present with it, actually transmutes, and from that, the wisdom, the actual wisdom of why the lesson was here to teach us in the first place actually arises from stillness. So stillness speaks. And when that happens, we actually, that wisdom itself is powerful enough to teach us how to respond instead of reacting. Because shooting other people and doing all of the things that we've been doing since beginning last time is reacting. And as a result of that, we've trained our nervous system in the dysregulated states. We're completely dysregulated. And so, this whole nervous system diagram that I have, and that's my own. That's my brain with the amygdala, because it took that, literally drawing it out and sitting with weeks, days upon days of contemplating and looking at it and understanding what's happening in me, what's feeding what. And that's the depth of work that it takes to even reprogram our nervous system in this regards, and to really dive in to really pierce the amygdala so that we can befriend it, right? So again, I didn't get the chance to read everything that this person wrote. From the pieces that I've read, a lot of it appears what he's saying is profound, it's deep, and it's meant to, I believe the intention behind it is meant to help awaken those who aren't aware of what's going on underneath the veils of social media and all the, there's a lot of false truths that being delivered as truths, and it's not truth, right? It's a lot of disillusionment. And this is basically intended to just help people to see through that veil of disillusionment that we were all programmed into or conditioned into. So it's helping people at that level, right? And I think that's really the wholesome intention behind it, because it was very well written. There are parts of it that, okay, could have been, but you know what? Again, the person is doing the best that they could or the best that they can from where they're at, and it's beautiful, and I respect that, because every lighthouse, look at how many millions of us, billions of us there is on the planet. Every lighthouse that's awakened, to me, it's like, go awaken, deserves celebration. It's like an encouragement, because it's easy to judge because we were taught to judge. We were conditioned heavily into judgment. My God, even I judge, like, oh, and I've been working on this for like 14 years nonstop, and I still catch myself from time to time, very rarely now, but I still catch myself. I've done it, and I catch myself when I go into Christian-based organizations like churches and so forth, right? I catch myself in judgment when, I go into space and realize the food that they're serving people is like, oh my God, my mind is like, oh my God, this is food that's designed to kill them. And they're getting funding for this, and then I go into that, so we all do it, and I guess that's a human in us, the human part, and the key here is just to remember, keep remembering, pure awareness, in our Zen, in my Zen practice says pure awareness is embodied, is embodied, is embodied. Pure awareness, yes. This awareness, my awareness, your awareness. We usually actually do this with visuals and point to with your awareness, all awareness, this awareness, and this is the grounding of this awareness. Awake, Swaha.
Beautiful.
I
Eternally
don't know if
grateful,
I
Francesca.
made sense, but there's a question, but yeah, kind of.
Thank you so much, Francesca. So one of the things why Francesca, Louise, and Josie and I are taking Eckhart's Teacher of Presence course. And during that course, like we are on module 2, and I think it's in the supplementary section. I don't remember where I listened to him talk about this. He talks about a lot of the teachers and students get very attached to the structure of the teaching. Like he says, like, when I say structure of the teaching, implying that it could be that somebody says you have to wake up at 3:30 in the morning, you have to do 100 Surya Namaskars at 3:30 in the morning, or as soon as the sun rises, you have to do meditation, then you have to do this, then you have to eat, then you have to do this thing, and then repeat the same the next day, then repeat the same the next day, right?
Kim shared that. Yeah, in module 1, in the second.
Kim shared that. I heard even Eckhart talks about not to get attached to the. So if you realize, Eckhart does not have a certain technique. Like he doesn't teach that. At least Dr. Joe says, okay, I have blessings of the energy center. There's a walking meditation. You can do a walking meditation. You can do a lying down meditation. There's body electric. There's a field of energy. You're in touch with this living matrix. So do body electric. There's a lot of techniques that Dr. Joe teaches. There's a breath work that Dr. Joe teaches, right? But Eckhart has no technique. Like, can we learn anything from Eckhart on how to develop presence? There's zero technique. He talks and talks and talks about one thing, which is beingness, but he just talks about it. He never says this is the technique, right? So realize that Eckhart is actually being, what I have realized from all of that is, from being with Eckhart since 2011, so 14 years. I mean, now it's the 15th year, 15 years of Eckhart's teachings. I've realized not to be attached to a structure, that things have to be a certain way.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
I never, like I shared Dr. Joe's teachings, I share Eckhart's teachings with people, but there's never a forceful, no, you have to follow this. There's never that. I'll share it and I'll let go. I share it. I share so much about Anthony Williams's cleansing protocol. I share it and I let go. Right? Because Eckhart has trained me to learn not to be identified and give a structure to anything I do. And I do that in my real life as well. I do not have a structure. If I want to meditate, I will meditate. I may meditate at 8 p.m. at night. I may meditate at 4 a.m. in the morning. I may wake up certain days and wake up at 3:30 in the morning and meditate at 4 a.m. in the morning. Certain days, but it's not like, oh my God, every day I have to wake up at 2:30 in the morning and do my meditation no matter what. I have to wake up at that certain time and do my meditation. There's no structure whatsoever in my personal life. The same thing with workout. If I feel like working out, I work out. If I don't feel like working out, I will not work out. I'll just make sure 2 or 3 times a week I do some kind of workout. Does that make sense? So that is a discipline that I've learned from Eckhart, is not to have structure. Can you understand that the word discipline and structure it in the same sentence, and actually not have structure in the same sentence? And the other thing I would say, Wyatt, is I know you're reading all this content. Why are you giving this content attention?
Energy. Mhm.
Why are you giving this type of content energy? Because what Dr. Joe says, right? Where attention goes, energy flows.
Sure.
So our energy is leaking into this content. Just that was the most beautiful out of all that Francesca said. The most exemplary thing Francesca said is she only feeds into content that she feels she can give good energy to. She'll respond to
Right.
that content, right? That's what I
Right.
understood. So
Okay.
why are you giving attention to content that's just garbage? Like, it's a lot of wordiness, lot of words. Why are you seeking? Like, why are you grasping? Why are you going around
Well,
and
I answered that at the very beginning when I said to you that after sending this to you yesterday,
Mhm.
a few hours before this call, I saw it. Okay, so I did not. So after you made your first comments tonight on this call, that's when I acknowledged that I was seeing through you the very thing you're talking about now. However, what you're talking about now is to me the living of non-duality without any identity, without any form, without any opposite being required. And so I'm going to, okay, so, and while you were about to ask me this question, which I've commented on now, I looked up what you had posted, because I always, whenever I see something great, no matter who it is, I text it to myself.
Mhm.
And that was, and what you're asking of me, but especially I'm focusing on what you're saying, which is a life of non-attachment.
Mhm.
I was rereading this post you put up in the last few hours about it, which begins with when you walk into the store to buy something or wherever you go, people slip into, and I'm quoting you, pre-established social roles.
Mhm.
And what you've been saying, which circles back beautifully to your question to me, is about how I saw a socialized role of duality in the way I interpreted, which
Mhm.
Patricia referred to. You know, we don't see others as they are, but as a projection of really, and I'm paraphrasing, my social role, that what my life I want to be more about is the non-attachment, so that wherever somebody is, it's about seeing them as they are
Mhm.
without any resistance on my part whatsoever. And
Perfect.
at the bottom of what you wrote a few hours ago, so you are not relating with that person at all, but who you think you are is relating to who you think the other person is, which really is both sides of the coin inside me. And then at the very end of this, you wrote, "It is therefore not surprising there is so much conflict in relationships because there is no true relationship at all. And this is from Eckhart Tolle's A New Earth. And then I wrote after that, which I sent all this to you, this is why it's called the egoic mind, because the egoic mind in a world of duality is all about identity
Mhm.
and not about the very way you're living, which because of your question, my egoic mind says, I want more of what Poonam is living. The fact that I can see it means I'm already there.
Mhm. Yes,
Yes,
because the
absolutely.
presence in you recognizes the presence in another. If you didn't have the presence, you would not recognize in the other. Correct.
Exactly correct. So this for me, I mean, I'm just so grateful the input from everyone tonight,
Mhm.
and really with your question, it's come to me full circle in and what I mean, what I'm saying by that is that to me this is the ascension toward the apex of the triangle. However, as I've told people, on the back of our $1 bill, we have the seal of America, and then on the reverse side is the triangle, and the apex is separate with an eye in the middle, which is, we say, in God we trust. However, to me, what you've reminded me of here now, as I coach people, I tell them the reason why the apex of the triangle is not attached to the triangle is because the country is not finished. We're still evolving, as I am. And the instant I saw the answer to your question a few minutes ago, that's when I became whole and complete once again. And wholeness and completion is for me the non-duality. And you nailed it for me, because what you said brought out of me what the answers I needed,
Beautiful.
but not the answers conceptually up here, rather the answers of living it here throughout
Mhm.
who I truly am. So thank you so very much for this. This has restored me. Wow. Oh, yeah, yeah. Not as a concept. I'm not going to bottle it and sell it. I'm a block from the Beverly Hills Hotel. I'm not going to go sell it in the Polo Lounge tonight. you know, you know, you know. Wow. So yeah.
Beautiful, Wyatt.
Thank
Perfect
you.
ending, right? We should end on this note. So
Yeah.
thank you for choosing your divinity over your humanity, everyone. Eternally grateful. Thank you so much. Many blessings. Much love. We'll meet in 2
Blessings,
weeks. Thank
Many
you. Many
blessings.
blessings.
everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.